welcome to our CILIPS East Branch event, shouting out about libraries. My name is Julie Sutherland. I'm the chair of East Branch. This event came about because we were hearing lots of information from colleagues across the country. And we started to get very fed up about the news that we were hearing, quietly angry, we're librarians, about how we are becoming a very easy target for budget cuts. We wanted to be able to do something and support our members, giving them a networking opportunity to be able to talk to each other about ways in which they are dealing with a similar situation, to get some advocacy tips from each other, and also find out about how CILIPS can help us. So what's going to happen today is that you'll see the event is being recorded at the moment. Sean and Kirsten are going to do a presentation on how CILIPS can support you and how you can advocate for your service. Then we're going to switch the cameras off because we want this to be a safe space. And we're going to give you a couple of focus questions. So the second half of the session is you talking to each other about what is going on with yourselves and doing a little bit of an elevator pitch, and then we're going to need somebody to feed back that to everybody else when we regroup back at the end. Okay, so that's the format for today. So Sean, would you like to take over and do the presentation?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to say to everyone, we've enabled captions, so if anyone needs the captions, I think you can turn them off if they are you know, in the way of any part of your screen and you don't want to see them, but they are enabled. And we have the chat function as well. So if you have any questions during Kirsten and I's presentation, do put them in the chat. We'll be happy to come to them at the end, and then we can explain the group work bit at the end. Conscious, you know, we've got people from all over the UK today, which is fantastic. Some of the work we've done is obviously Scotland specific, but I think the part at the end where we're talking about how we can all advocate better and some of our tips for that should be relevant for you wherever you are, and it'd be great to hear perspectives from all across the UK that we can all learn from, because I think we all face a lot of the same challenges and the solutions are the same for them. So thank you. Yeah, now Kirsten's going to do the first part of the presentation, so Kirsten McQuarrie, our CILIPS Membership Officer, will take over from here. Thanks, Kirsten.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sean. Thanks, Julie. And thank you to everyone for coming along today. It's, can hear, perfect timing for a wee fire alarm test there. But of course, we know all about services in challenging times, which is our focus today. So I think so many of you already support CILIPS Advocacy, do great advocacy work on your own. Really what I'm going to highlight in my half of the presentation is the sheer diversity of what advocacy evidence can be. This by no means has to be yet another thing on what I know are very long to-do lists already. Every day when you turn up to work, when you deliver your library services, you are creating an evidence base that we can draw on to advocate for why libraries are essential. So all I'm going to highlight now is kind of how we can crystallize that, translate it into the most effective advocacy that we can. So let's get started. So I'm going to begin with something that we love to do, and it's a key part of our mission here at CILIPS, which is proactive campaigning. As you'll imagine, that does pretty much what it says on the tin. It's a proactive celebration, championing of everything that libraries and information staff do. You are hopefully already familiar with two of our key campaigns, Libraries Are Essential in 2021 and Libraries Are Essential Scotland Stories, the second year of that campaign, which tied in with 2022 being the year of Scotland Stories. These are just wonderful celebrations of everything that libraries can offer. You'll see on the bottom left of my screen that I've taken a little shot of our evidence banks, so you can see why libraries are essential to Scottish society, to tackling misinformation, another key theme there. And you've also seen that we have creative contributions as well as supportive quotes, which I'll be touching on more in the next slide. This is really to show the richness of what evidence can be. It's far from just facts and figures alone. Your community can express their voice however is right for them about what libraries mean to them. And something that also literally illustrates that is the beautiful illustration from Glasgow Women's Library towards the right. So this came from a terrific report, The Transformative Space of the Library, that we highlighted as part of our campaign. It was a team of researchers at the University of Strathclyde. They had used the Women's Library as a case study. And you can see that participant actually created this themselves. So rather than a kind of classic narrative of what the library means to them. They illustrated it, they have drawn it for us all to benefit from. Without libraries, there'd be a worse world. It just changed my life so much. So every day when you're having your craft clubs, when you're having your knit and natter, when people are in whatever they're creating as part of the library, that is evidence, and we want to highlight it however we possibly can. So I've touched on how diverse evidence can be, but those who give us evidence also really need to be diverse. And you can see, some of you will know that here at CILIPS, we were, during Libraries Are Essential, we were a tiny team of 2. We've now grown to a team of 3, but we represent a community that's 1,200 strong, and it takes every voice within that to really make for an effective advocacy campaign. I mentioned our supportive quotes earlier, and you can see just one of the many that received by the wonderful Paul McNamee, the Big Issue editor. Name another free public space of warm, non-judgmental shelter that can serve the entire community. We'll be touching on how libraries serve the community and how we've highlighted that in existing advocacy very shortly, but it does show the value of sharing as many diverse voices as we can as part of any campaign. Sean will be touching later on the fact that we know that there can be constraints about how you can individually speak out, depending on what organisation you're with, but that's why it's so important to hear the voices of users and to really centre them as part of any proactive advocacy. And again, just touching on the diversity of what our evidence base can be, you can see on the bottom left the wonderful Virtually Together project from East Renfrewshire Libraries. This was, again, it was work that was already taking place, blending technological innovation with social outreach, with tackling social isolation. And this case study made it UK-wide. It will be familiar to many of you from Libraries Week as much as from Libraries Are Essential. So that shows the value of just documenting in photos and case studies and just a line or two from participants the impact that your library projects are having. Up on the top right, you can see our friends at Save Nottingham Libraries. Again, the whole community came out. We've got some great examples of this happening in Scotland as well. One voice amongst many, the collective sort of expressing why libraries matter so much to them really convinces decision makers. As Sean will mention later, nothing convinces councillors, politicians more than knowing that their voters prioritise something. They're used to us speaking out for libraries, but they want to know what matters to their voters. So it's so valuable to get that kind of grassroots groundswell of support for any campaign. And finally, I've also highlighted here the walking library. So yeah, there's projects that we might not necessarily expect, but they can be really convincing to people about the value of libraries. So we highlighted this as part of Scotland's Stories. The wonderful Professor Dee Hedden leading the walking library, coming to a location near you, I'm sure soon. Just again, sort of, I think people can have these cliched ideas of what we do. So it's wonderful to use proactive advocacy to challenge them and prove that libraries are so much more. And another point of our advocacy that I hope will be familiar to many of you is Libraries Week. Coming up in the first week of October, you might remember from last year, our theme was Never Stop Learning, Lifelong Learning, and there was evidence to spare that we could draw on. You can see, for example, our school librarians designed their Managing a School Library Guide. We held our own event, not dissimilar to this, about reasons to join CILIPS and why being part of your professional association matters. And we also held, it's a great opportunity for the community to come together, so we held our notoriously tricky quiz night, which might have a 2023 appearance to watch this space. We also, I think a key part of advocacy is partnerships, is bringing in as many voices as we can. And we were honoured to collaborate with Forth Valley Sensory Centre during the last Libraries Week. Now this video is, I hope I have enabled sound, give me a shout if you can't hear anything, but this was it's just a minute and a half. And I think if you watch it, we can learn something, and also it touches on just how creative library advocacy can be. So I'm going to hand over for 1 minute to the wonderful Lindsay at Forth Valley Sensory Centre. Let's see if these work.
Hello, my name is Lindsay. I'm the group coordinator at Forth Valley Sensory Centre. Today, I'm going to teach you some signs linked to the library. The first sign is library, so these are your books stacked up on a shelf. The second sign is books, so open it up like a book and then you read. Favourite, so it's like a thumbs up, favourite. Character, in BSL this is also the sign for person or student, and that's dependent on context. Learn, so it looks like this, all the knowledge going in. So like learn is knowledge going in, teach is when you teach other people. Understand, it's like a little light bulb moment. So read is like this, so like read is like your eyes and you're reading your text. Story. Right, this is your pen and this is your paper. Welcome to the library. So this is your welcome and this is your library. So nice to meet you. So this is nice and this is meeting another person. So like this is your person that's coming to meet you and this is you and you meet in the middle. Can I help you? Now help is directional. If you want to ask to help someone else, you go outwards towards that person. If you want to ask someone to help you, you say, can you help me? Thank you. So it comes out like thank you. Hello. If you want to say goodbye as well, just goodbye.
So huge thanks to Lindsay for that. And the reason that I'm playing it here is that actually we might not realise it, but Lindsay is advocating for libraries while she's sharing these signs, and that video is on CILIPS YouTube, as you can see. If you want to revise, you can also, when you get these slides, you can see my slightly less slick practices learning. But whenever we use, you know, the learning that we do, our CPD, we are advocating for our services. We are proving that libraries are essential to inclusion, to community, and that's why I think it's well worth kind of just emphasising how diverse our evidence base can be. Let me try and move on now. There we are. Oh, love this magnifying glass. Pause for the beautiful magnifying glass from our friends at National Library of Scotland map collections. The reason for this slide is to highlight that proactive advocacy, it can be more thematic. It doesn't need to speak to every aspect of what we deliver altogether. And a great example of this is CILIPS Go Green. Hopefully it's familiar to many of you already. Our sustainability campaign that's been running since COP26. If you have a garden and a library, you have everything you need. I don't think we can put it better than Cicero. But we've got examples here from, as I said, NLS, Glasgow Women's Library in the bottom left, the Nature Library on the bottom right. Again, emphasising in the most creative ways and work that's already very much ongoing, just bringing it together so that decision makers, so that members of the public know that in fact libraries are essential to sustainability. This is a key priority for decision makers, so making sure that they know that in fact we can't afford to be without libraries if this truly is a community priority. And advocacy can also take place within the sector. Again, I hope that some of you are familiar with CILIPS Winspiration, our programme centering and celebrating women within the sector, because we're around 75% women at the moment. But as part of the evidence base for that, we realised through research that was recently conducted that sexual harassment is far more prevalent than we had anticipated in libraries, regrettably. I mean, even one incident is one too many. But that inspired us to run the Not Our Job campaign, again, using kind of simple evidence-based messaging. And that petition, if you click the hyperlink when you receive these slides, we would love to have your signatures on that petition. I've also highlighted here 2 upcoming Winspiration events that feel particularly relevant today. We are quite infamous as a profession for kind of hiding our lights under a bushel, for selling ourselves short. I know that the whole point of professional registration is getting you to shout about libraries, shout about the wonderful work that you're doing. So we have not 1 but 2 events all about combating imposter syndrome. Please do check the CILIPS calendar and join us there, because I think that will equip us all to be the best advocates that we can possibly be. So I mentioned proactive campaigning. Regrettably, sometimes we have to do reactive campaigning as well. You can probably imagine from the word reaction what this is. If there's a threat or the implementation of service restrictions, of service reductions, of funding cuts, we are in there. That's unfortunately a key part of the work that we have to do, and especially over the past few years that has been really key. So the example that I pulled out here, in North Lanarkshire, there was the I think they called it, it's horrendous terminology, the deletion of all secondary school librarians. You can see from the petition on the right that over 42,000 people signed that petition. And also at the bottom, just 3 examples amongst many that Sean will write to decision makers, making sure that they have the evidence base that we've been gathering to understand why this is so short-sighted, why it is so detrimental to every person within their community. And another important element of that reactive campaigning is inspiring the community, as I already alluded to earlier, to get that community advocacy and activism here. So So you can see for North Lanarkshire, we actually created posters that we took out into the community, because again, there's nothing like that grassroots swell of support to really emphasise to decision makers why this is so wrong. And also, if there are restrictions on you and what you can personally do within your role, it's a great way to, again, get the community involved. You can see that that's also been happening to brilliant effect in Aberdeen earlier this year. Interestingly, this is not the same dog. The one on the left is my girl Winnie, and then this is another little library lover down here. But yes, even the pets of CILIPS know why libraries are essential. So really getting as sort of eye-catching across social media and on the ground, it really does make all the difference. And when I'm mentioning whether campaigns are proactive or reactive, I think it's important to acknowledge that they can be both. And the example I've drawn out here, it's a very bittersweet one. It's a warm welcome. Our CILIPS work with the money-saving expert Martin Lewis to fast-track actually guidelines on setting up warm spaces in your communities. I don't need to tell any of you that this is not new work for us, that libraries have always been offering that warm, safe space. I remember being on the front line, being on the library desk, and people telling us that it was here or the bookies, the only two places they could go that were warm. But of course, with the cost of living crisis, this has been thrown into even sharper relief. So it's quite difficult, I think, to say whether this is proactive, reactive. It is outrageous, whichever way. I do not want, none of us want to be saying that libraries are saving lives or preventing hypothermia. But if that is the reality that we are horrendously facing, we want to make sure that people know the literally life-saving work that you are doing in your community. So again, to shout it out and shout it proud. One key way in which we do that here at CILIPS is through PLANS, the Public Library Advocacy Network for Scotland. Again, making sure that we're not just speaking to each other, that we are getting this message out across Scotland and even beyond. So especially nice to see attendees from beyond Scotland here today. So PLANS is a network. We have partners, from CILIP, from Scottish Book Trust, and from the press, which I'll touch on in a moment, really making sure that proactive, positive advocacy messages for libraries get out, that they understand the evidence base, they understand the reality of what you're all doing day in, day out. So whenever you share a case study with us, whenever you share social media posts, it's all going into that evidence base, and it really is reaching the ears of people that have wonderful clout within Scotland's literary landscape. And another important element of that is press coverage. So I couldn't mention press coverage without giving a special shout out to the incredible Catherine Salmon. She is an honorary member of CILIPS, very well deserved. She was editor of Scotland on Sunday. She's now moved to the Herald and has been an absolute passionate advocate for everything that we do. So again, when you're sending us this evidence, when you're sharing it with us, it really does reach the right people. And you can see examples from the Daily Record, from the Scotsman, and even internationally. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the Biblio. Okay, I tried and I shouldn't have attempted that, but this is actually a Swedish equivalent of Information Professional that Sean and I were lucky enough to be featured in as part of CILIPS Go Green. So advocacy, really supporting our advocacy, it can have local, national, and even international reach. And before I conclude my segment, I want to highlight that we are really dedicated to not just managing the existing evidence base, but growing that evidence base too. And that informed us and the CILIPS Trustee Board to inaugurate the CILIPS Research Fund last year. So this offers up to £10,000 in funding for researchers, practitioners, activists, students, and other interested professionals. So whoever you are, that includes you. All that we ask is the work seeks to advance library advocacy. And you can see our three key themes: how libraries are essential to tackling climate change, to challenging the cost of living crisis, as we've already seen, and to combating child poverty. Our recipients from last year, the University of Glasgow and Glasgow Women's Library, I think it's worth highlighting these projects because, again, they just really vividly illustrate the variety of directions in which you can take advocacy. So Reveal is perhaps slightly more quantitative, certainly more grounded in the ethics core values of our profession and CILIP's ethical framework and our own CPD, whereas Glasgow Women's Library, it's a series of creative workshops, very climate informed, really taking it in exciting but equally convincing directions. And the final slide for me is just to emphasise that the research fund for 2023 is open now. So our deadline, it is, is that a month to go? Completely lost track of the date. Less than a month to go, in fact, after our annual conference. The deadline is the 16th of June, and we would love to see applications from you. You can find all the details via this link. But yes, it will be growing that evidence base year on year. And for more on kind of what exactly, how we can use our evidence, how you can all contribute, I'm going to hand over to Sean now. So thanks very much for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Kirsten, and thank you to Julie and East Branch for having us. This is a really nice idea to try and get people talking about advocacy and how we can work together. I think one of the main things I would say is we wouldn't claim to be experts. You know, we've learned a lot over the years we've been doing this job about what we think works with advocacy and campaigning and that side of things. But there may be things that you think we could do more of. You think there's things that don't work, and we'd be really keen to hear from you about that. But what I'll share today is some of the things that I think work when trying to fight the case for libraries of all kinds. First of all, one of the things when I started this job 10 years ago, I didn't quite understand sometimes what the word advocacy meant in the sense of fighting for services. So just to clarify for anyone that's not sure, advocacy is very much about influencing in any way we can, demonstrating value. So anything that shines a light on what libraries do or what information services do and really shows how they are valuable to society or any other kind of key agendas is advocacy. And that may be doing it in the press, it may be just doing it to friends, family, to media, any other types of people who'd be interested in listening. Do always be an advocate for libraries when you can. I'm sure you've all got perhaps people that you know that have an old-fashioned view of libraries or make the cliched jokes, and you know, if you can, you know, put people right when we can. Lobbying is more specific. That's perhaps something that we at CILIPS or other bodies might do. That's very much about trying to influence change at a political level. Tends to be lobbying is specifically relating to attempts to influence legislation or politics. So it's making a case for political change. So sometimes, for example, at the moment we are fighting the case because we believe that school librarians, for example, in Scotland should be ring-fenced in the same way that teachers are, and we're trying to put that case to the Scottish Government, and that involves a kind of lobbying that we are registered to do and will carry out. But that is all underpinned and supported by everybody else's advocacy. So the two are very closely linked, but there is that subtle difference. So we're an evidence-based profession, as you all know, so we absolutely believe that evidence is key to making the case for libraries. When I first started at CILIPS, it was 2013. It wasn't long after the kind of 2010 initial hit of austerity started to affect libraries. And I think at that point we had lots of knowledge about how great libraries are, but whether we really had that evidence bank ready at that time, I don't know, because we didn't perhaps expect just how much it would be needed. But over the last 10 years, I think we've really built up a strong case for why libraries are essential to all areas of society. One of the good places to look is on the CILIPS website, and I know the CILIP UK website will have resources as well. But on that link there are Public Libraries Key Facts 2023. Now, over our campaigns, we always produce key facts at Sport Libraries, but obviously as things change year on year, those numbers change. So here, I've just tried to gather some of the most recent facts that would be useful. Our friends at the Save Aberdeen Libraries campaign were keen to put forward a case to their decision makers. So we gathered that together so that they had a handy kind of crib sheet to use. There's also great stuff about school libraries on our website as well. Perhaps not as much evidence for school libraries. That's not because it's not there. It's just that sometimes people carry out evidence more around public libraries, and we have to rely on what's out there. And that's what the Research Fund is hoping to do, trying to get some more targeted research out there rather than just waiting for what appears from other organisations and trying to pick it together. But there is a wealth of evidence for school libraries, but it's more case study based. There is some evidence about the attainment links to school libraries, which we often use, but it'd be great to get more, and we're really keen over the next few years to really strengthen that case for school libraries. And I know the Great School Libraries campaign have done a lot around that as well. There in Scotland, there's a community planning dashboard. Now, that is something that was funded by our colleagues at the Scottish Library and Information Council, and it contains data, open data for all local authorities across Scotland, or certainly the vast majority of them. It has library footfall, it has numbers of libraries per population, these kind of things. It's a really good use of open data, and I know that our colleagues at CILIP and I think perhaps a few other organisations are looking at perhaps doing something very similar in England soon. So hopefully that will be quite a comprehensive approach. I think there's a lot more that could be done about libraries releasing open data to try and enable that. But this is a great example of using other open data or CIPFA data and things like that to create a dashboard that we can then use for advocacy. For example, when Aberdeen were proposing to close 6 branches, and unfortunately that still has gone ahead, we were able to see and work out very quickly from that would leave them with the lowest number of branches per population in Scotland. Now that instantly is a great advocacy tool to throw back at councillors and say, listen, if you do this, this is what will happen. And we wouldn't have had that before without doing, you know, a lot of kind of complicated research and sums, and we're a team of 3 people, so it can be challenging to do that. So that's hugely useful, and I'll put the link in the chat for that. It's often the law that is the best way that we can defend services. Now it's different in Scotland and across the other parts of the UK. Across most of the other parts of the UK, I think it's the Public Libraries Act 1964, I think. But in Scotland, that is not the case. It's the Local Government Act that defends libraries. Now, neither is particularly strong. I think it's actually stronger elsewhere in the UK, where for public libraries you must have a comprehensive and comprehensive service. I think it is. Sorry, I'm more familiar with the Scottish legislation. In Scotland, it's an adequate service that you must do. Now, you can imagine that is not particularly strong if it was ever tested in court, and it never has been, because adequate is a word which you know would have a lot of legal flexibility. However, what we find is if we're speaking to campaigners and we want people to use the law as a defence for libraries, the Equalities Act is the strongest part, and that covers the whole of the UK. The Equalities Act, it means that you can't disadvantage anyone with a protected characteristic. So, you know, for example, if someone has a disability and closing a library branch would mean that they have to travel further, then there is a real, that act can be very vital. And I do know that I think in Aberdeen, they're currently looking at perhaps having a judicial review based on that, which would be really helpful. So yeah, so do be aware of the legislation and do have a think about what that means, because it can help, and it can be good to know that. And because a lot of councillors don't sometimes know how statutory public library services are. As I've said, school libraries not as protected, but we do have the national strategy in Scotland, and we really want that to really be a document that going forward continues to protect school librarians. Language is very important. People have different opinions on this. We don't believe in saying save libraries, because we think that you know, it almost creates this idea that they're an endangered animal or an endangered species, and they're not. You know, I know there's been cuts all across the UK, but you know, in Scotland and in many other places, the vast majority of libraries are still open. They're hugely used. You know, we have visits higher than the cinema and football in Scotland. And I think the same in the rest of the UK. So we don't want to create this negative connotation that it's you know, in the treatment room and it needs urgently saved. It's very much about supporting libraries. You know, yes, there's cuts, but there's still amazing things going on. So support them, fund them. It's not about just keeping them alive at the bare minimum. It's about actually putting funding into them, and that's why we think, you know, the whole local government funding model needs to be better resourced and supported going forward. So can we just jump back? That's slightly. Yeah, we can think about what decision makers now. I've had kind of debates in the past with people about this idea of using return on investment as an argument, because some people feel that it's talking into almost like a more capitalist mindset, and that can undo it. And I understand that. I do think that sometimes, though, that idea of spending £1 in libraries can have a £6 return on some studies, £8 in others, can be important about making that point to councillors that this short-term spending on libraries rather than those short-term savings can have long-term benefits. Whereas if libraries, school libraries, public libraries, or any type of libraries are reduced, the long-term damage is huge, and getting that point across is important. Thank you. Okay, so what can you do to help? Now, please be mindful of what you can and can't do. You do have to be careful about speaking out. You know, you may, you know, speak to your line manager. You may be in a position to publicly advocate or speak to the press, but do be mindful of that. I think if you are unsure, speak to your line manager, but do speak to us. We can often be the confidential arm of advocacy. I think obviously that would be in Scotland for us, but do speak to CILIP or CILIP Wales or CILIP Ireland and make them aware of anything that you're concerned about in your service. Do it in plenty of time. The sooner that we know about something, the sooner we can get ahead of it and get the evidence in front of councillors. If councillors have all the evidence in front of them and still make the decision, there's not much else we can all collectively do if they're within the law. But if we know it in advance and we can get the evidence in front of them, then it often will change minds. A lot of the time, local residents are the most powerful voice. We as librarians, or we as a professional body, sometimes there can be a feeling of, if we are saying protect libraries, well, of course we would say that. We're speaking up for our jobs. But what can be much more vital, or equally or slightly more vital, is residents who pay their council tax like we do, but aren't actually working within the services speaking up. We saw that in Glasgow a couple of years ago when branches were closing. Very, very boisterous campaign. People had placards, people were doing read-ins. That kind of deep and focused advocacy that worries councillors about their next election makes a huge difference. It's not always easy, certainly in somewhere like Aberdeen or Glasgow or some of the areas in London that I know have had issues in the past. There's big communities there. They can easily be accessed, harder in small local authorities where it's a bit harder to get that local resident group. But don't be afraid to, just if things are in the public domain, make users aware of it. They sometimes might not have picked it up in the local paper. So do make sure that people are aware, and then they can take that campaign on. If that campaign then needs advice or support, speak to us. We can speak to them directly and keep you out of it if you're a council employee and don't want to do that. Ask friends or family, make sure the friends or family are informed and can also speak to us, but they can be useful as a way of being a mouthpiece for some of the things that you may not be able to say in your council role. Again, be careful with that you're not putting yourself into any trouble. And don't wait. Often people, when we'll hear from them, is when their library service has been told we're reducing the staff or we're closing a branch. Sometimes it can be quite late to then pull together the evidence that we need. So don't wait. Always be an advocate for your service. This all sounds quite negative, but what we really want to get across is be a positive advocate for libraries at all times, so that we're ahead of the game. So we already have case studies, so we already have loads of things going on, because you're all doing them, but it's sometimes making sure that be conscious of gathering them, just not only for your service, but for your own career and things like that. And it's because we want to avoid this negative news cycle. It's for example, if there's a headline about libraries closing, then that can start to infect other authorities who think, well, they've had the bad press, we can maybe do it more quietly. So we do want to, some of that's essential. We do have to get that news out there, but we want to balance it with as much positive news as possible. So do continue to gather things and keep us informed about what you're doing so we can share it and amplify it. So what can you do? Case studies. If you're a CILIP Scotland member, we've got a form for case studies you can share. If you're elsewhere, speak to your kind of either CILIP UK or Wales or Ireland and ask them how they can best share the work that you're doing. They'll have different ways of doing it. Obviously, there's the CILIP Journal. There's various websites, but I'd be surprised if anyone aren't willing to probably share something in some way, even if it's just on social media. Don't assume that we always know that you're doing something, because there's 32 local authorities in Scotland, many more across the United Kingdom. And sometimes things don't get picked up on, even if they are a fantastic project. Statistics is good. Key facts, if you reach a lot of people with a project, keep a note of that, because that kind of stuff that numerical value can be a sweetener, I think, for decision makers sometimes over the, great pictures and great stories. Quotes as well are really, really useful. If you have local press that you can use, it can be good to know them. Now, obviously, again, with that caveat that you shouldn't be, flagging up service cuts if you're a council employee. But use the press to highlight great projects that you're doing. Get used to who the person is that always writes about libraries, and make sure they know if you're doing something great, or put them in touch with us. As you probably know, authors, celebrities are really, really great help in any advocacy. If we have, I think when we launched a campaign a few years ago, I don't think the press would have picked up on it in any way as much as if we hadn't had an Irvine Welsh quote at the time. So at the time we went to his publisher, it helped the new Trainspotting film was coming out. So you sometimes have to be a bit pragmatic about how you're getting that support. And he gave us a quote about how important his local library was. And that then meant that every paper would then print it with Irvine Welsh says libraries must be supported. It's an almost cheesy way of doing it, but it does really help if you can do that. And yeah, and don't forget to have a look at the CILIPS website. Have a look. You know, there's lots of different content and things on there. And if we've missed anything, if there's anything that you think we would do more of, then please do let us know, because we don't always cover everything. Okay, so now before we move on to the bit where we'll get you just discussing in small groups with each other some things about what you think might help advocacy. Here's our email addresses. We'll share the slides, obviously, so that you can just take these down without writing them down just now.